An iconic address here in Maximum City, Mumbai, the World Towers is a symbol of India's coming of age. Building a better life across geographies, this marvel is home to unsurpassable luxury, world-class design, and is a cultural haven for the iconic personalities that call it home. Hi, I'm Sumit Lakhotia, and this week on Life in the Skies at the World Towers, partnered by ET Now, I'm in conversation with one such iconic personality, Harjeet Toor. With an illustrious career spanning over 26 years in the consumer banking space, Harjeet Toor, head of retail banking at RBL Bank, is a strong entrepreneurial business leader with an astute focus on financial inclusion for all. Let's start from the beginning. So now I know you're an army kid, a 4G kid as they say. So how did that upbringing, because you used to keep changing houses every few years, how did that help later on in life? How did that upbringing set a foundation?
No, I think army life was, that's the only life I knew, by the way, so I can't really compare, but it was fantastic in terms of, getting you ready to accept almost any change which came in. I mean, for us, it was pretty normal. Every 2-3 years, you moved cities, you moved houses, you moved schools, you made new friends. Yeah. Must be a nightmare when other people think of that life. But for us, I think it was pretty normal. After about 2 years, you get that itch. Where are we going next? But yeah, I think it rounded me and my sister up pretty well. We were always willing to adapt, to adjust, and I think that helps.
Mr. Toor, growing up, what were some role models that you looked up to, maybe some mentors for you in that early impressionable age?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I had role models, but I think I was pretty inspired by my dad.
Right.
I think since we were growing up in those years, it was pretty close and personal interaction, and I loved his professionalism, his dedication to work, and at the same time, his ability to spend so much of time with us as a family, and his, he enjoyed life, and those were some of the things which I think left an impression, and therefore I try and do some of that stuff here as well. I think the other piece which was ingrained in us was family, and not only our immediate family but extended families. I mean, our holidays used to be grandparents, and all cousins used to come. So yeah. I think that kind of made us much more closer. And today also, therefore, I strive that we spend family time, we together as a family, and that's I think the core.
Usually, anybody whose parent is in the army, like your father was a brigadier,
yes.
And when he retired, they end up wanting to go into the army. So was that an ambition for you also in the younger years to get into the army?
Oh yes, it was. In fact, to be honest, I think the friend circle and everybody was all army kids. Yeah. And we were in a situation where, I mean, that was the only thing to do. Yeah, and you have this option of getting into the army after 10th. You give an NDA exam and therefore you go. So that was, I did my 10th and I said, okay, I'm getting in. And it was actually my dad who said, it's maybe too early. Wait for another 2 years. Right. And he packed me off to Delhi, and I enrolled into modern school. And he said, okay, live your life for the next 2 years and then decide. And I think those years changed, because suddenly around me, there were no army kids. No. And then you had businessmen, you had engineers, children and all, and that's how then the shift happened, and I gave up the idea of getting into army and went into engineering.
Yeah, that's the other thing. So you studied engineering, but you're a career banker. How did that happen? That's like an amazing shift.
Today also I tell my own daughter that, it's okay if you do not know at that time what is the stream you want to go. Yes. I mean, I wanted to get into army, I did engineering. By the way, I also gave my medical exams because I did science, so it didn't really matter. So since engineering happened first, I got in. And I loved the engineering field. But then in about 2 years' time, I realized that when I looked around and saw all the senior guys, all of them had management degrees. And I said, in my naivety at that time, engineering shouldn't mean that I remain on the shop floor. And therefore I said, okay, let's do a management. And I met my wife in my first year of working. We both were engineers. And then I told her, I said, look, I want to do MBA, which means I will be without a job for 2 years.
Right, yeah.
She said, it's fine, I'll continue working.
Oh, wow.
And that's how I enrolled myself into
So how was your wife, Vandana, I believe
Yes.
her name is, how was it at that time? Because her support has been obviously priceless, invaluable to your journey.
Yeah, so I think for me it was fantastic because you still had her. We were still living independently. She was the breadwinner,
Yeah.
and I was a student. I'm sure she had a tough times because she would come back tired, and we would be a bunch of students sitting and generally doing her assignments. But I think she was a pillar of support.
Generally in life, either you plan stuff or sometimes
Yeah.
it just falls into place. So
Yeah.
the Bank of America, the start into the banking career, how was that?
Yeah, so normally what happens in MBA schools is if you want to get into banking or financial services, you are a finance major.
Right.
I was a unique one because I liked marketing more.
Okay.
But then I did like finance. So I said, okay, these both get amalgamated, and that's how I choose consumer banking. Not too many people opt for consumer banking when they come from business schools. So that's how I got into banking. And I think the other thing playing around at that time used to be, it was a big thing getting into MNC organizations. And you had Bank of America, you had Citibank, HSBC. These were the three big banks at that time. And I said, okay, Bank of America sounds good. So
Super.
that was the only interview I gave, and that's the only one I got selected in.
You moved on from Bank of America and to other organizations, and now
Yes.
you're finally at RBL Bank. So take us through that journey. What's some of the key points, some of the major highlights?
Yeah, so for me, I think the first big change came in as I joined BankCam, worked for 3 months, and joined in Delhi.
Yeah, yeah.
And we had a situation where I was asked whether I would go and set up, let's say, retail sales in Calcutta.
Okay.
And I had never been to Calcutta before. And my friends told me, my other batchmates, you're crazy, you're going to go to Calcutta from Delhi, small operation, why would you even want to do that? And I said, I come from an army background where you are transferred. You don't
Yeah.
go and say, no, I don't like this city, so
Yeah,
I'm not going to go.
true.
So I said, I'm fine, I'll go. I think that changed things because I could set up stuff which would directly get attributed to me. So therefore, success suddenly got highlighted. And that's how I got onto a fast track through Bank of America. And then from there, the other thing I always did was try and see different aspects of banking. So whether it was sales, then product management, business management. I even did branch banking because I wanted to feel how is it to control let's say, thousands of people, manage them. So yeah, all those things kind of work.
So but it's great because it's a wide spectrum of experiences that have come together
Yes.
that you've gone through. And I know currently also you're looking at retail inclusion, and an important part is the financial inclusion part, and that is a hot spot right now. Everybody's talking about it.
Yeah.
But what's happening and how has the impact of digitization, technology totally changed the game for this space?
Yeah, so before I get into how the space changed, I think it's important to understand that I was a career foreign banker for a very long time, till I got into RBL.
Right.
And in the financial crisis of 2008, all, let's say, foreign banks and MNC companies actually decided to go back to their home markets, and they were all consolidating. And that's the time I realized that, the true success in India would be to bank the masses. Right. That's the real opportunity, and not get limited to the HNI, a few million customers in few cities. And that's how RBL happened, and then microfinance came. Now this was something which I was never exposed to. To give you a perspective, we are what? We bank about 4 million rural women across 1,000 branches in about 20,000 villages. So, it was an eye-opener. And very humbling to sit with them under a tree, literally, on the ground, and understand their small micro businesses. Somebody would have 2 cattle and somebody would run a small shop, etc. And the big difference you would make in your small loans which you gave them. I think that is a great thing. Yeah, now the industry slowly started changing because more and more banks have started getting in. And as that happens, then you're trying to now introduce newer banking products to these customers. And I think that is the new thing which is happening there. Microfinance was a very fixed model of group loans which were being done by a whole host of microfinance companies. And as the bigger ones became banks and some of the banks got in, I think people now realize that you could offer them a host of banking services, not just those micro loans,
Yeah.
but you could open savings accounts, encourage them to make investments, provide insurance cover, health cover, and maybe even move beyond the women to the households and try
Yeah.
and bank the households, whether it's home loans, etc. That entire works. That is now started happening. Earlier, understand that microfinance companies were not allowed to do all this. Their only job was to give microloans. But with banks coming in or them becoming banks, I think that's opened up, which means now technology has come to the forefront.
Exactly.
You've got credit underwriting models which are being deployed, and therefore people are experimenting. So I think give it another 2 years or so, you will see a sea change in that segment.
Because there is a slew of like NBFCs and fintech companies also that are coming in here and kind of targeting the bottom of the economic pyramid. So are you seeing some kind of synergies come out between banks and these organizations, NBFCs, fintechs, to work together to kind of provide better products, better services to
I think
rural India?
fintechs do definitely bring in the advantage of technology, customer experience, and the ability to be able to target this mass in a far more cost-effective manner. At the same time, one needs to keep in mind is that this particular segment cannot be only digital. You need what we commonly call as phygital. You need a physical touch. I think the good part is that the infrastructure in terms of branches, feet on street, etc., is all there. And therefore now technology can only add to it and make it far more efficient. And that I think is what is happening these days.
It'll be game changing for sure. Entrepreneurial banker. Walk me through that. What does that mean and why would you say that you're an entrepreneur?
Yeah, not too many bankers can say they're entrepreneurials because banks are typically very well regulated.
Yes.
And foreign bankers less so because foreign banks define for themselves
This
boundaries
place.
within which you work, and I think it's required because they work across countries, etc. But I think in India you see opportunities almost once every 2 days, and you need to be able to experiment, take chances, go with your conviction, try things. Some work, some don't, but you need to go with that. And that's what RBL kind of provided me. They gave me a blank canvas and said, set up the retail bank. And that was, I think, where it was. And one of the other things which worked in our favor was, I think philosophically, we gave ownership to employees. So,
That's important.
rather than being an employee who was basically gunning for hierarchies and grades, now suddenly you were owners of the bank, and therefore the bank's well-being was the most important piece. And I think that's got the entrepreneurial nature out, and that's why I say I'm an entrepreneurial banker.
Fantastic. The way ahead, what does it look like for you? One is, of course, in the banking space, the microfinance, the financial inclusion space, and just as Mr. Harjeet Toor, the banker.
I actually don't have very well-defined goals, so to say.
Nice.
I think there is a broad overall ambition, and which has changed over a period, but now is to do something which you are recognized for. So if it's in my sphere of banking, then I would want to do something which I'm recognized for. Rest, I would like to take things as they come. I mean, that's my childhood training, okay? So I'm never too obsessed about, this is the goal and this much time you have to reach there. You take things, I think if you put your values first, things happen the right way. And that's what for me is. So I'm ambitious still. I'm very focused. But I tend to enjoy the journey there more than actually the point where you want to reach.
Fantastic. And so would that be one of your main leadership mantras or any other leadership mantras that you would like to share with us?
Yes, in a way, yes, because I keep telling my colleagues or teammates that, don't get too bogged down by just the goal. Okay, enjoy the journey. That is more important because that's what teaches you lessons. Otherwise, sometimes, because you will face ups and downs, and many times you face downs,
true.
which is perfectly fine, and you shouldn't get disheartened about it. So that's been the core. The other, I think, are very simple values. I mean, respect people, bring a certain kind of professionalism to the fore, Those are uncompromised integrity. I mean, that I think is core, especially in the financial services space as well. So yeah.
Through your journey, if there are people out there watching who might be in the early stages of a similar journey like you, words of wisdom, what's your piece of
I
advice?
would say follow your passion.
Yeah.
I think days have changed. In our days, if you were doing science, there were only 2 streams you could get into. I think that's changed.
Yeah.
My daughter, for example, is doing liberal arts in the US. It was quite a shock for me because there's no science. But that's what it is. And I think they're far more well-informed and better global citizens today than we were. We were still very narrow in our thinking. So follow your passion. Give things time. Don't be impatient. It's a very long life.
Yeah, true.
You know, you need to cherish every moment of it, and don't get disheartened. Just if you have something, just be at it, and you will succeed. I mean, that's for sure. It may take you a little more time, but that's fine.
Fantastic. Well, Mr. Toor, our conversation will continue, but it's time for a short break. Don't go anywhere. After this quick break, I talk to Mr. Toor about his life here at the iconic World Towers when we're not talking about banking and numbers and financial terms. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Life in the Skies at the World Towers, partnered by ET. Now my conversation with Harjeet Toor continues here. Mr. Toor, you know, earlier, like you spoke about how you're a 4G kid, so obviously the early days was moving about every 2 to 3 years. But then you've spent a lot of your time in Delhi, and now you moved to Mumbai. How's the shift been? I mean, moving from life in Delhi and to versus life in Mumbai?
Yeah, so I think now I'm a proper Mumbaiker after having spent about 9 years. But yeah, my bulk of the time was in Delhi. And it's always difficult to compare these two cities. And actually somebody had once told me that don't answer this question till you are 2 years into the city, because you need that much of time for you to get to know the city.
So now it's been more than 2 years.
Yeah, so now I can. Now I can.
It.
So I think Bombay is defined by its people. I mean, largely, that's the way I look at it. And people are warm, they're pretty welcoming, they're quite professional, work ethics is strong, and that's what I like about this city. It kind of embraces you in, and you kind of just love the way it is. So what I liked about Delhi was obviously more open, big spaces, large houses, big roads, the relations, parents, friends, still in Delhi. But so I'm pretty neutral, but I think if you were to ask my daughter, definitely Mumbai. That's what it could be.
You know, you've recently moved here to the iconic World Towers. What were some of the reasons that helped cement the decision to move here for you and the family?
I used to stay in Powai for all these years. And every year the commute got tougher and tougher. And then the metro started getting constructed. And then some of the flyovers started getting constructed. And then I said, look, this 1.5 hours each way is almost getting impossible. And therefore, we started about 2 years back looking for something this side in Lower Parel and surroundings. And it was a tough one because I said I wanted a house which was equally good, nice open spaces, great views. And we struggled. But then I saw a flat here in World Towers. And I think that was it. So we were kind of sold from the beginning. I think just the sheer opulence when you enter, the service which you get, the flats are great, the views are brilliant. So we were kind of sold out and we said, let's move. And therefore we moved in the pandemic.
And that's the thing, because you've been here just a few months, but of course, because of that, you've not had a chance to experience all the amenities.
Yes.
But what are some of the amenities that you're looking forward to, and which are the ones that you currently are using?
Yeah, so currently I think my most used amenity is the gym. So I go there every day. Not that I'm a great fitness buff or anything, but I think the gym is spectacular. So anybody who's even not a, let's say, a regular gymmer would love it when you kind of go to that. So that's, I think the outdoor sports arena is fantastic. While I've still done only walks, but one day I would want to play tennis there. as well. The courts are amazing. I play badminton, so I'm trying to figure out if I get to know more people, then I'll maybe play some badminton as well. And waiting for pools to open. So for me, I think these are some of the stuff. The cafe is wonderful. I mean, yesterday we had a cup of coffee there and some sizzlers. So I think it's great stuff there as well.
Speaking of food, you are quite a foodie, and I know we were talking earlier, and you've tried these really exotic dishes and stuff like that. So is that kind of like what Harjeet Tour's checklist includes? Wherever he's traveling, I've got to try out some exotic dish there.
Yeah, so we joke around saying that when we travel and when we go on holidays, they're more food trips than sightseeing or anything else. But yeah, I mean, it's been there since the beginning. I love food. And I love experimenting with food. So I mean, whether within the country or outside, every type of local cuisine I would want to try. It doesn't matter what shape, size, look does it come from. I mean, even here, if I like a restaurant, I will never go and order the same thing. I'll always try something different. So that's something which is there. And luckily for me, my wife, my daughter, both of them love food equally. So yeah, that's what it is.
On a regular day, what does Harjeet Tour do in his downtime? How does he recharge his batteries?
Yeah, so my ideal downtime is to sit on the deck in World One and just look into the vast expanse, which is a lovely view. So that's what I love doing the most. Basically do nothing, just sit and enjoy. And I love cooking. So even at our house, one of us is always making something or the other, especially at nights.
So the experimental part is not just at restaurants, it's at home at the kitchen.
And I keep telling people don't ask for recipes because they change every time. So
just if you like it, enjoy it. Next time it'll be something totally different.
Absolutely, yeah.
Any specific part of the house that is that's your favorite space? Would that be the deck, or is there another?
Yeah, deck is clearly this house. Deck is clearly number one, then the living room, and then the bedroom. I think that's the order it goes. For us, what was important was we wanted to be in a place where, let's say, the day-to-day stuff in terms of maintaining a house or your, errands, etc., are all taken care of. And the facilities should be good, because the more you stay in the house, the more you want an outlet, and therefore you wanted to use the facilities. I don't know, I mean, before the pandemic was one you really using these many facilities, which what one does that. So I think those were some of the things which were there. And we've always loved apartment living, especially in complexes. So that's what we used to look like. And now luckily there are lots which are coming in, but these towers are clearly one of the best, so yeah.
You've traveled a lot, and you've visited some of the global icons, so whether it's the Burj Khalifa, the Empire State Building, Eiffel Tower, Petronas Towers. Your thoughts on living in India's icon to the world, which is these world towers? Yeah,
so I was just joking with somebody, it still feels like as if I'm in a resort. Every time you enter, it is not like, okay, I'm going home. It's like I come into a resort, there are great people around, service standards are immaculate, cleanliness, and you go up to your apartment and then you're in your house. So I think that it's simply superb. I've stayed in many places in many cities before, but I think this is clearly one of the best so far. It's been very nicely done.
Mr. Toor, if you look back at your journey, anything that you feel that you would have done differently, or that you wish would have happened, not happened, or would have happened differently?
No, actually, I think I try and enjoy the journey, and I've enjoyed every part of it. Not everything has been rosy, but that's okay. You do need some things to go not right for you to then understand the importance of when things go right. So I wouldn't want to change anything. I'm happy with the way things are.
I mean, you've got to have the downs to enjoy the ups.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Mr. Toor, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you and getting to know more about your life. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
With Life in the Skies at the World Towers, partnered by ET Now, it's been an absolute joy and privilege to bring you the amazing and inspiring success stories of 6 renowned personalities, and also give you a sneak peek into their lives here at the iconic World Towers set against the mesmerizing Mumbai skyline. That's all on this series, but stay tuned to ET Now for more engaging content, and thank you so much for watching.